instead of asking yourself, what are most people doing on LinkedIn? Just change the question into what sort of benefit could I, as a smart real estate agent, could gain from LinkedIn, and go that way, even if most people don't try it.
Hello and welcome to episode 76 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. Now, if you're anything like me, you have a LinkedIn account but really don't know how to properly use it. Well, on today's episode, we're joined by LinkedIn expert Danielalfond. Since joining the platform in early 2004, Daniel has mastered using it to grow businesses. He's even wrote a book on the topic. Throughout our conversation, Daniel shares his tips for realtors and business professionals alike to leverage their LinkedIn profiles to bring in high-quality leads and become a pipeline of referral business. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Click the bell to get notifications when each new episode is uploaded. And lastly, if you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to the day's featured interview with Danielalfond. I've linked his website, Danielalfond.com, in the episode description. There you can find links to all of his other tips and trainings to maximize LinkedIn's potential for your business. Getting started, I just love to have you introduce yourself to me a little bit, where you're at in the world and what it is that you have your expertise in.
With pleasure. So I'm based in south of Tel Aviv, Israel, almost as sunny as Jacksonville, Florida. And I actually started using LinkedIn, Michael, when I signed up in 2004, and I was looking for some playbook and I couldn't find anything. So I had to create my own playbook, and I've enjoyed it ever since.
Right. So LinkedIn, in 2004, LinkedIn was launched in March of 2003, somewhere about there?
Yeah, the summer of 2003, it was a soft launch, and early 2004, it was officially launched.
So how did you find LinkedIn? Yeah, how did you find it at that time?
The essence has not changed much. It's conservative. It's slow. You don't post a lot of cool photographs from the ice cream or dinner you've had, but it has become the most amazing B2B platform and career platform in the world. Close to 1 billion users have been acquired by Microsoft, and every second, 2 people somewhere in the world sign up for a LinkedIn account.
Right. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about. I think people don't understand how large the platform is because, like you said, it is a conservative platform in the fact that they don't do a lot of advertising and make themselves look like this very large platform that they are.
You're absolutely right. Actually, LinkedIn's revenues don't come from advertising. When you compare it with other platforms, most of LinkedIn's revenues don't come from advertising nor from premium content. It's a content powerhouse, and when you have content, it's the best place to post it. And some of the episodes you released were with content very prominent in Instagram or videos. The blog post you had with Katie McCowan. Mm-hmm. So that you don't have to produce content for the sake of LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Because producing content is time consuming and could be also expensive. But once you've created quality content, educational content, then posting it on LinkedIn makes a lot of sense.
Right. So for us and our listeners, we're primarily real estate driven. Most of our listeners are either, brokerages of their own companies or the real estate agents themselves. So, for agents, a lot of times when they think social media marketing and getting their name out there, they're thinking of the Instagrams, the Facebooks, and sometimes YouTube, but really there's a great opportunity for LinkedIn.
You're right. And we were discussing this pre-recording. One very simple but powerful idea would be, instead of trying to chase the homeowner or someone who wants to buy or sell a residence, it would be to think about the partners you could partner with as a real estate agent. And those could be attorneys, some of the episodes and content you shared are related either to inheritance or divorce. And LinkedIn could, instead of trying to find someone who wants to sell their condo, find 2 or 3 additional attorneys to work with, could bring you dozens of deals in the next 2 years.
Right.
So try to think about, not instead of asking yourself what are most people doing on LinkedIn, just change the question into what sort of benefit could I, as a smart real estate agent, could gain from LinkedIn, and go that way, even if most people don't try it.
Right. And I think when you talk about, having the partnerships with the real estate attorneys and those type of businesses, those are people that real estate agents should be making personal relationships with in their community already. So just kind of going down that list and thinking, trying to find all of those professionals in your area, I think would be a great idea.
Using advanced search, it's free. It will take you a couple of minutes to find attorneys. And so if you connected with people you know well, then you would find it easy to be introduced to someone, and it could be a win-win partnership. Right.
What tips do you have for people when reaching out to those professionals? Because I think sometimes people, the social media messaging sometimes is a little bit scary to some people. What tips do you have for actually, reaching out in the first place, but then also making sure that it actually is seen?
It's a great question. And I'll give an answer that's very old school, if you'd like. Whenever you can find someone who knows both you, Michael, and the attorney well, try to do it. So it would take a little more time, but you have a lot more chances of actually getting a reply and having a meaningful conversation. So when you find someone and you see that John Doe is a mutual connection of yours, if you connected with John Doe and you actually know that person, then leave LinkedIn. LinkedIn has provided you with a name, both names actually, but speak to John Doe and ask how he's been, and say that you're looking for to build a partnership with such and such attorney, and simply ask, would he feel comfortable enough to make the introduction? And if that happens, then no social media messaging ever happened. LinkedIn is just the platform that enabled you to find the person you'd like to target. And the most important name is the name of your mutual connection, which boils down to your connection strategy and real life networking, if you'd like.
Right. One of those things you talk about, is the connection strategy. And LinkedIn is all connection based, and you can see, who knows who, and, so building out that network is really important. But what is your advice for when you're just starting out? Is it to build as many connections as possible, or, to start kind of building that page up a little bit?
I found that leading is not a popularity contest. And as someone starting out in business, you'll find it a lot easier to have a small quality network. And even based on that network, you could be an outstanding real estate agent with 200 connections and knowing all of them well. And you could also be a realtor with 30,000 connections and get crickets or no revenues from LinkedIn. So the idea is not to have more connections. The idea is to have more business, more revenues. And that doesn't mean you have to have a lot of connections. Because if you have many connections and they don't know anything about you, then you are really not able to leverage those connections. So pick quality. When you're starting out, it makes a lot more sense.
Right. And when you are starting out, is it a good idea to, with LinkedIn, there's a lot of opportunities to, show your skill sets and show what you can do and add links and add the type of content that, whereas on a Facebook page, it kind of gets buried sometimes on that behind all the other, like you said, the photos, the way their threads are built out. So what tips do you have for actually like building a really solid profile on there on LinkedIn to where your message is coming across the way you'd like it to be?
Excellent. So I'll try to suggest a simple 3-step framework. The first would be to identify your ideal reader on LinkedIn. So your ideal reader could be any real estate agent who could be interested in growing their business. Some of our listeners here could be interested in attorneys, like we said, or maybe tax specialists or brokers or anything like that. And then the second question to ask is, if we were enabling those people to visit your profile, what sort of action, Michael, would you like them to perform after reading your own profile? And if the answer is reach out to me, then make sure that the information you put on your profile makes them understand they need to speak with you. And your profile should speak for itself. You could say, I'm looking for attorneys who do X, Y, and Z, and I want to help them grow their business by referrals or anything that makes sense to you. Just 3 simple questions. Who's your ideal reader? What action would you like them to perform? And are we really making it as easy and frictionless as possible for them to understand that you're the person to reach out to?
Right. Yeah, I think, when it comes to a real estate agent, one of the ideas that I was, kind of think of, especially when using LinkedIn, is, I talk to a lot of agents that do, the great relocation type videos. This is the video of this certain town, or, maybe they are in Jacksonville, Florida here. We have several different neighborhoods that are very different from each other, and they'll write blog posts on these specific neighborhoods. And using that content on your LinkedIn page to kind of attract some of those relocation movers, I think could be a good idea.
Just a quick idea about this. If you actually produce relocation content or relocation videos, then instead of just thinking about your own LinkedIn profile, if you'd like, then try to find LinkedIn groups where people, if you were to move from Jacksonville and move to the West Coast, then one of the things you could do is try to build your business there. And LinkedIn would be one of the options for you to try to network. So finding local or regional or state groups, not huge groups. They could have 500 people, 3,000 people, but there you may be the only real estate agent there speaking or explaining about that neighborhood. So it's one great way to show people to get exposure for your content without harassing your own connections, because your connections may be 20 miles from you. They don't need an introduction to the neighborhood. They could walk right around it.
Yeah. So when it comes to finding those groups, for somebody that's not familiar with LinkedIn, how do you find those groups, and how do you kind of vet those out to make sure that they are going to be beneficial to you?
It's a great question. The search bar, the top navigation bar on the left, when you use it on desktop, enables you to run any search you'd like. And I would start with maybe 2 or 3 words. It could be Miami. It could be Fort Lauderdale. It could be Florida. It could be Florida business. It could be Miami business. It could be Jacksonville. You'll find maybe less groups, but it doesn't really matter. And then try to think about when you see the groups themselves. In order to see the content or post, you need to be a member of that group. So you simply request to be added to that group. And by the time you added it, try to monitor the group and see what's happening there. And try with a baby step. Try sharing one simple piece of content that you have that's educational in a smallish group, a group with 2,000 people. So you'll see how it works. You'll see the mechanism. You'll see when to post it and whether people see it or not, before you move to the gorillas and before you do anything on the largest stage. That can consistently enable more people to discover your content and eventually reach out to you and say, my wife and I decided we were going to make the big jump, and I feel like I know you. We've never spoken, but I heard your voice and I fell in love with the neighborhood. Please guide us.
Right. And I think that's the great thing about, the way things work now with, just the online networking that you can do is you can build a relationship with somebody without ever speaking to them before, just because of all the content that you can put out there. It's so easy now.
You're right. I was listening to one of the episodes you released with Terry Drexler. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I almost forgot about it. My dad was in real estate for 10 years, and I remember I was a kiddo when people walked into his office. his work was a lot harder than maybe if he could do it today. He had to immediately connect with people. They could be janitors, they could be accounts, and nowadays you can produce content, and you get the opportunity to make people know about you, what sort of things you like, and what is it to communicate with you. It's a lot easier in that respect.
Right. So I just kind of want to jump back and touch on some of the things that over the time that you've been with LinkedIn that you've learned and really kind of honed in on, and what you're teaching now. And one of the things is that perfect introduction. And how do you really kind of craft that introduction for yourself?
Okay, so when we consider the ideal introduction, the secret is to know when to leave LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. In other words, you run a search and you find, let's maybe discuss some other option. Other than our real estate listeners here could also leverage LinkedIn in order to help companies hire office space or rent office space. And that's another possible great use of LinkedIn. Say you've just read on the Wall Street Journal that a company is about to relocate to Jacksonville, Florida. And that takes time, maybe in 2 quarters, and you can easily find their chief operation officer on LinkedIn and their VP HR. It will take you literally 5 minutes. And let's suppose that Jane Doe is the person to contact there, and you have a mutual connection, and we'll call that connection Robert. Then first question is, do you actually know Robert? Yes, I know you're connected on LinkedIn, but you may have been tempted to connect with people you don't know well. So it boils down to a previous question you asked. When you send connection requests, or when you accept invitations from people that you don't know, it may be a vanity metric, like I have 3,000 connections. Mm-hmm. But when something happens and you actually need to ask Robert for anything, if you don't know who Robert is, then your chances of getting a perfect introduction are low, in my opinion. So let's say you're an excellent student and you connected only with people you knew well. Then the request itself need not be on LinkedIn at all. When you visit Robert's LinkedIn profile, when you click on his contact info, you'll be able to see their email. Mm-hmm. And what I would do is try to reach out to him and ask how he's been, and then mention the name of the VP of the company relocating to Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. And instead of just saying her name is Sue Brown, you can send him a link to her LinkedIn profile in order to make it as easy as for him as possible to say, yes, Michael, of course I know her. We've worked together 3 years ago.
Right.
And if he says, yes, I know her, the next step would be to try and ask him whether he would be willing to forward the question to her. And the question you should phrase the question. It should be like, we have helped companies relocate to Jacksonville, and we know the neighborhood. Is there any way for us to schedule a Zoom call, or if you visit the neighborhood, I'll be glad to walk you through the great office space here. And I can't guarantee a reply. I can't guarantee business, okay? But if you have a number of such initiatives, then the initial attention you'll get is thanks to Robert's name. It's not us, because she doesn't know us. But if you vetted Robert and he agreed to be the sponsor, and he asked that question, and the lady said, you know what, that sounds interesting, because it's like a headache for her. And she may have, a ton of logistics and some unhappy employees, and she would look for something that would make the transition as fast as possible. And she would be relieved to know that you can actually save time for her. And that could bring a lot of revenues to your agency, to your business. And also try, if you really think about being the smart agent and about the perfect introduction, keep Robert in the loop.
Right.
He's made the introduction. if the lady connected or agreed to speak with you or visited the place with you, always remember to thank him. It's a different question whether you'd like to compensate Robert or not financially. But even if you do it financially, a simple call or simple thank you would go a long way. And sometimes, get an amazing introduction, and you forget to tell the person who actually did it. And the lady would say, you know what, I was wanting to thank you for introducing me to Michael. And he would go like, Michael who? And it would be disastrous.
Right.
Because it's not her job to let him know that you two spoke. It's our job. If we ask for an introduction, then someone made the effort to put his name on the line, and it's our responsibility to let him know when we succeed or when we fail.
Right. And I think, when it comes down to the introduction and whether or not you get a response, is if you never attempt to reach out, you're never going to get the business anyway. So but when it comes to LinkedIn and over, we're going on, 18 years you've been on LinkedIn now. What are some of the myths out there that you'd like to dispel for, people that have their accounts, but they're really not using them that much?
Well, it's an excellent question. Maybe I'll mention the 5 main ones, in my opinion. A lot of people think that their company page is important on LinkedIn. And I found actually that your profile is a lot more important than your company page. Okay, you may work for Authorify or Smart Agents, but you as an individual, your profile is a lot more important than the company page, because the company page on LinkedIn is static. And you'll have a lot more connections using your own LinkedIn profile than your company page would have followers at any given date. So if you only have dozens of employees, if you're a real estate agency with up to 50 or 200 staff, your page is not important. You need to leverage the individual profiles, the real estate agent themselves. That's number one. The second would be about quantity and quality and in networking and in your connection strategy. And the third, very simple one, would be to think, if you're a real estate agent and you're not looking for a new job, then instead of thinking about your LinkedIn profile as a CV, try to think of it like a website. Mm-hmm. And your website needs to convert your ideal reader. And you're doing it all day long. So the fact that some people are looking for jobs on LinkedIn should not influence you, Michael, if you're not looking for a job. It's like, you now know how to drive. So if most people take the highway, but you'd like to go someplace else, then do it.
Right. I like what you just said there about thinking of your LinkedIn profile as a website, because I think a lot of people do see LinkedIn as just that, either the job posting board or hey, I'm looking for a job over here. Here's my skill sets. And they don't use LinkedIn at all because that's the idea that they have behind it.
And our listeners have more than LinkedIn and more than one skill. The simple question to ask would be, you don't need to transform yourself for LinkedIn. Just try to think about what's the best thing that LinkedIn can help me achieve. And even if it's 10% of your business, even if office space is just 10% of your business, then your identity on LinkedIn could focus on that. Because people are going to contact you on Facebook, on your website, or thanks to the podcast, but the attorneys or the tax specialist or the office space professionals are going to see only your partner-oriented profile, if you'd like.
Right. So just, kind of wrapping up, when it comes to LinkedIn and adding, for agents that haven't really used LinkedIn, they're thinking, gosh, I need to add another, social media platform to be involved in. It can get overwhelming when you think of all the different places, that if you were to hit all of them, what's that kind of cadence that you would, or schedule that you would say you need to be active on LinkedIn?
Okay, so you're going to like at least this answer. You don't have to be active on LinkedIn. You don't have it's a bit even misleading to think of it as a social platform. Yes, it has social elements, but it's basically a professional platform. And most of our connections are not that interested in seeing what we share. But whenever someone Googles the real estate agent's name, then LinkedIn would be one of the top results. And that means they need to take it seriously. They don't need to work a lot. They don't need to spend more than a couple of minutes a week or a month if they don't have the time for that. Basically creating a decent profile, educating their ideal clients about LinkedIn. And even prior to that, ask yourself as a smart real estate agent, is my clientele on LinkedIn or not? Mm-hmm. And if for any reason you don't find your clients on LinkedIn, then you don't have to use it. But if they are, then it doesn't make sense to neglect it, because that could help you gain more business and more leads and more revenues. Right. You got to fish where the fish are.
Right. I really like that. And I think, I think LinkedIn is a great way to build those relationships that can lead into pipelines of new clients. I really love, the advice of don't reach out. You're not looking for the home buyer or the home seller. You're reaching out to the referral partner.
Yeah, the agent could use a lot of additional platforms to make the listing and the videos in the Instagrams, and LinkedIn could simply help their business grow, not by finding another home buyer or another condo seller, but trying to do something else and grow their business in a different way.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me this morning. These tips are LinkedIn, again, is one of those sites that I think a lot of people, they know about, they might have the profile, but they just don't know how to properly use it.
Thank you very much, Michael, for your time. And I'll just check your own profile in a week's time and see if you've revamped it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank Daniel for joining us today. And I really like what he said about treating your LinkedIn profile like a website and not just another social media profile. Now remember, I've linked Daniel's website, Danielalfond.com, in the episode description. Be sure to check it out to see more of the trainings he has to offer. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.